off to Nemo. This time he's got room to run. He's at the 50, the 40, before he's finally brought down at about the 30-yard line. Big.
Check, check, check. All right, play that one more time.
He's going to be wrapped up in the backfield and goes down for a loss and a turnover on downs. Cliff Funderburk and Galen Brown crashing in from the ends to get there first, and the Falcons defense stands up. On the read option, breaks the tackle. He's got some room to run now. Across the 40, the 35, the 30. 1 man to beat at the 20, the 15, breaks the tackle, the 10, touchdown. Falcons with Jalen Smith, a 50-yard touchdown run. Oh, and the ball gets popped out high in the air. It's still loose, and it's still bubbling around, and it's still on the ground.
We got it.
Finally, North 40 comes up with it. Looks like KC Cornelius with the fumble recovery.
Off to Nemo. This time he's got room to run. He's at the 50, the 40, before he's finally brought down at about the 30-yard line. Big time run there from Nemo.
All right, it's North Forney Falcons football here on YouTube. We're on YouTube this year, part of the HSN Sports YouTube channel, I guess, for lack of better words. But it is still the Goonville Radio Network. I'm Wally, joined alongside by James. Tim's up here in the booth with us, too, to kind of give us some insight. You'll hear Tim quite a bit this year here on the Goonville Radio Network on SHN Sports. He'll be doing some pregame, postgame, halftime show work with us, and he'll be filling in for either James or I when neither one of us might not be here. Tim will gladly step in, and we won't even miss a beat. Not even miss a beat. Well, James, it's time for some North Forney football. They're scrimmaging the Poteet Pirates right now. We're kind of doing our own scrimmaging here up here in the press box. We got YouTube this year instead of Mixler, so we're kind of finding out how things are working with that. But we're just a week away from real football. This is pretty real football, but a week away from the start of the season, and it's a good kind of a test of where North Forney's at because Poteet's a really good football team.
Yeah, you say maybe not be official football, but I'm telling you, they're slapping each other pretty good down there right now, trading some hits and seeing some mouthpieces on the ground, having to pick them up. I think they're breaking the pads in real good. See, North Forney had a pretty good first possession on offense, a couple of nice passes, and now they're on defense. So see what this defensive line can do.
Well, North Forney they don't have their typical numbers on. They've got the jerseys they have are scattered numbers because they don't want anybody that maybe scouts that are here to really get a key in on who's who and what they're doing. So it's kind of hard for us as well. We also don't have a roster or depth chart or anything. We know some of the guys, but some of the guys we don't really know. That's kind of the fun aspect of a new season is getting to know some of the guys that are new. Not maybe just to varsity or new from moving in. And so we'll kind of we're not going to give you necessarily play-by-play or each player or anything, but we want to talk about the season, maybe preview it a little bit as kind of what we think might happen or what we want to happen or don't want to happen and we'll kind of keep in touch with the game here, or the scrimmage here in front of us. Like you mentioned, North Forney already had the ball once. They had a couple of first downs and then basically stalled out. Now Mesquite Poteet has the ball on their first offensive possession, and now they're on their second first down as well.
Yeah, we talk about a new season, new dreams, new potential. I put on social media earlier that I'm really looking forward to calling a playoff game this year. It seemed like last year, by the time we got about halfway through district, we kind of already forgetting about playoffs, and so hoping this year that it's a different story.
Well, and if you read any of the magazines or keep up with any of the preseason stuff, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, which is a pretty big deal here in the state of Texas. They do, they preview all the high schools, all the colleges. Well, in North Forney's district, they have picked them to finish third and make playoffs. So that it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. Now they were also picked to make playoffs last year, and anybody that followed this program knows how that went. They didn't make playoffs, but there's a lot of reasons to be excited this year. One of them, and we could start with that, is quarterback. Jacob Acuna. Who we saw for the last 3 or 4 games last year. They pretty much, after Jalen got hurt, they threw him out there and said, hey, the rest of the season is yours. And I thought it was a really good idea, too. That season wasn't looking really good. And it wasn't looking good before Jalen even got hurt. The offense was struggling with him at quarterback. And so I think it was good for a learning experience for Acuna to get out there so he's not trying to learn on the fly this year. I think those 3 or 4 games from him last year that he got to start, I think are going to be invaluable to not only him, but to the whole North Forney team this season.
Well, as being Falcon fans, you never want to, just say, well, that's not going to work or that's not good. You always want to give it a chance. And I think really the bottom line last year is that he just didn't fit the offense that they wanted to run. He's not really wasn't a deep threat, although he got better as the year went on with the deep ball, but that really wasn't his game like it was the year prior. And so I think as we have a pick 6 here, looks like, from the Falcons.
Yeah, they won't let him run it all the way back, but it will go down as an interception. I believe that is Donaldson. Is that Jacob Donaldson?
That's what it looks like it.
Yeah, and I think he was one of the – can't remember who I was talking to within the last couple of weeks, somebody around the North Forney program, and they rave about Donaldson. He's one of those guys that can kind of play – he plays in the secondary, but he can also play on the offensive side of the ball if they needed to. They don't probably even need him to, with the receivers they've got. But he's definitely somebody that they love on that defensive side of the ball that can make some plays and really be relied upon too.
And going back to Acuna there, I think he fits the mold of what this offense needs as a passer. Just earlier on that first possession, I just noticed he steps up in the pocket. He's so smooth with handling himself inside the pocket, and he's got a good arm. He kind of overthrew a deep ball there, but I think he's going to better fit what Coach Jackson wants to do on the offensive side of the football.
And a deep throw down the middle, and that pass is broken up by, guess who? Jacob Donaldson. So he's kind of having a day for himself so far. With going back to Acuna, I got to talk to a couple of the players at the Goon game last weekend, the inter-squad scrimmage. And the one thing that stood out talking to them about Acuna was leadership. That's always something that you kind of wonder with a young quarterback that really hasn't started, doesn't have that experience, just a handful of starts. And that's what he said. Man, hey, in the offseason, he really showed us, he's our leader. He really came through and really stepped up to show that. And I think that's a big key. We talk about the tools, the physical traits that a quarterback needs to possess to be good, but even on the high school level, we talk about it all the time in pros. We talk about it in college, but even at the high school level, those quarterbacks need to be able to be good leaders. And so that was one that they really raved about. And if he can kind of be that guy this year, that when things get down, he can rally them. And talking to some of those same players, they were talking. They mentioned that last year after the Forney game, the Unity Bowl, which is the 3rd game of the season, it was the first district game right off the bat. After that game, they were really got down on themselves, and the players said, we really just were never able to respond, and get back up off the mat from that. So that's where they need that leadership this year. That if maybe they lose a game early that maybe they don't want to lose, they don't expect to lose, that you can rebound from that, and that's where leadership comes in and plays a big part.
Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned that about Acuna specifically, because I remember at the inter squad scrimmage last year that we noticed right off the bat that, hey, this kid's got something, got that it thing going with him. He just looks the part. He carries himself well. He's a football player. You could tell. And when we asked the coaches about him, because we knew he was obviously a sophomore last year, he wasn't starting, and so we just asked about him because we were like, hey man, what's this kid got? And they said that he's got all the tools. He's needs a swift kick in the rear to kind of get the want to going. And so to see that come full circle this year to be a leader on the team, that tells you, A, your coaching staff is doing their job, and they're really pouring into to Jacob, and to see him be a leader, that's an awesome sign for other players on the team too that can step up and do what he's doing.
Well, I think that a lot of credit goes to Acuna too for accepting that responsibility, and I think a lot of times that when the rest of your teammates are now looking at you for that, that is sometimes that is the swift kick in the butt.
Yeah.
That you don't want to let your teammates down. So it'd be interesting to see how he handles being the starter full time this year from the get go, and how the rest of the team, how the offense looks. Because man, it was really tough to watch from having called the games the year before with Colby and that offense and how good they were, and then to watch how just the offense struggle for a lot of the season last year for different reasons. And so I mean I know the coaches want to get that offense back on track, and that's kind of that's Coach Jackson's bread and butter is that offense, and the defense has played well, kept them in a lot of games they really had no business being in last year. But that offense is what makes his teams go, and I know they're going to want to get back to that this year.
Well, and it was so hit and miss last year. Like you had certain quarters where you're like, man, this offense is coming alive, and I mean, great plays where we're shouting out of our shoes up here, but. And then you'd have moments where you're just like, man, you're killing your defense with the style of offense that you're running. And so I think that's going to come full circle this year, and I expect them to be more consistent, especially with Acuna at quarterback.
We've talked a lot about Acuna, but there's a lot of other players, stars on that offense. The offensive line, there's a lot expected of them this year. Last year they were really young. Josh Anderson, who was a freshman last year, came in and played some offensive line. He's actually switched over to the defensive line this year. Riley Tracy was a sophomore last year, getting his first experience. He'll be a junior this year. Robert McCoy, who plays next to Tracy as a tackle, he's a senior. A lot will be expected of him. The offensive line at times kind of struggled last year, in some not to their not their own fault, but a lot was kind of put on them without being able to pass the ball deep down the field. But the offensive line coming in this year, like I said, expectations are high for them, and. Jeremiah Baker also, I think he's a senior as well. So they can help take a lot of that pressure off of Acuna as well because of how good they can be.
So far here in this scrimmage, the running game is kind of struggling to take off, but I've noticed he's had a lot of time to throw the ball and room to step up in the pocket, so that's obviously a good sign.
Well, when we talk about the offensive line too, we know the running backs. I think the running backs will be pretty straightforward. I mean, we'll see if there's any surprises as we get the season started. But from what I could see throughout spring and here in the fall camp, it looks like Soto is going to be the starter. And we both love Soto. I got a chance to talk to Soto quite a bit at the Goon game the other day. Man, I love talking to him. Now I've already decided that my favorite player this year is going to be Jules Unique Dimps, but Soto might give him a run for his money. Soto was real open with me. Talked a lot. But was also really respectful and kind as well, which a lot of these players are. That's what's really cool. Jules was that way. But Soto it looks like he'll be the starter, and we know that he can carry the load if need be. He doesn't look like you wouldn't think so, but he can. And then also you got Nemo is actually switching over to defensive end. Nemo played a lot of running back in the past, but he's switching over to defensive end. He might still play some running back as we go. And then there was the freshman last year, I believe. I would say it was Ty Collins was his name, and I would imagine he'll get a run again this year. But they want to run the ball. I mean, we know the offenses before, with Colby and stuff, how good they were throwing the ball, and it really stood out last year, them being able to struggle in throwing the football. So I think that's kind of what sticks in our minds. But really, they want to run the ball first and foremost. And if they, we'll see Acuna run the ball some this year. We really like that about last year about his game is he will take off, and he's a very adept runner. But that's what they want to do. They want to run the ball, then take and do some deep shots off the play action. And the other thing they'll do, too, is spread the ball out to those receivers, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I want to hear kind of your thoughts on the running game going into this year.
Well, I think, like you said before, it all is going to obviously start with the guys up front. If they can create just the little bit of a lane that Soto and company can run through, then we've seen that they can take a hit and carry a guy with them. We saw that all last year, but it's just unfortunately most of the time it started in the backfield, and so they would carry him for a yard or two. And so I expect them, the offensive line being a little older, like you're talking about, to really come out here with some swagger and push these guys off the line, and you're going to have lots of opportunities with teams in our district that are a lot smaller than we are. We saw that last year. You have one or two teams that can match up with size with you guys, and so pushing people off the ball and getting your running back some space is going to be key, and then put the ball in his hands and see what they can do. And we obviously know that just like in any level, if you can run the ball effectively, then it's gonna open up your passing game deep and short. It's just 'cause they're just so worried about that run game. So,
but both teams here have had now they're on their Poteet's on their, I believe, their third possession or second possession. Each team has thrown a pick, which would probably go for pick sixes both ways. Both teams have moved the ball for a couple of first downs as well. Both teams really haven't been able to run the ball very well, but both of them have passed the ball through the air, and that's how they've moved the chains. North Forney, we talked about quarterback, we talked about Acuna, we talked about the offensive line and kind of what we expect from them and their experience. We talked a little bit about the running backs as well. And then you've got the receivers. North Forney's had some really good receivers in the past. They've got some more this year. I think, just to name a couple of them, and there's a bunch of them, but just to name a couple of them. DeJuan Johnson's back. I think this is really his third year of varsity experience. Cam Allen, who transferred in, he's getting a lot of D1 looks. He's a monster. He's so big. I think he's, 6'4", maybe 6'5", 230. He'll play some tight end. He'll play some receiver. We saw him earlier kind of line up on the outside with that second team and had a big catch down the field, about 30-yard catch, so that they can move him around all over the place and use him in a lot of different ways. And then a guy that we've already seen a couple of times tonight that has really stood out to me in spring and in fall camp is Colin Shipley. Shipley, lots of speed. He's so fast, so quick. He'll kind of play out of that slot position, really smart, got really good hands. I watched his brother play baseball. Probably a couple of the games you did. You remember Hayden Shipley playing center field because he was the fastest player on the team. Well, it runs in the family. I don't know. I'll have to talk to Clint about that. But, the younger Shipley, Colin, is just as fast. I think he's going to be a big-time threat out of that slot receiver position. I expect a lot of big things from the receivers this year.
Yeah, I think especially out of that, like you're saying, out of that slot position, Acuna's he's still young and still, he's got a few games under his belt, but he's not a seasoned veteran by any means. And so I think especially early in the year, a guy like that could really get him going and get some easy pitch and catches.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We talked about the offense running the ball, and that's really what they want to do, and then take some deep shots. Now, the other aspect of their offense that we see a lot is those wide receiver screens. And what they do is they'll spread those receivers. They'll have two on the right side, two on the left side. You'll hear that a lot this year, setting up the play. Two receivers to the left, two to the right, two on each side. And you'll hear that. You'll hear me say that a lot because they'll be spread out, on the outside of each number. So they'll be way spread out from the rest of the offense. And it's pretty simple as to what they want to do with that. And that's, they're saying, hey, if you line up man for man out there, we got two receivers, you got two cornerbacks. We're going to throw the ball out there to one of them, and that we only got to beat one player, and it's going to be a big play. And we think our receivers can make that big play, break that tackle, make a miss. Or if you shade a linebacker, you shade somebody out that way, then we're going to run it because we've got the numbers in the box. And so it really puts a lot of stress on that defense, and it's the further you spread them out, the bigger chance those are for those big plays, whether it be passing the ball to them or running up the middle. You'll see that a lot this year, and it's no secret. North Forney, it's out there on tape. That's what they want to do. It's just kind of a pick your poison. It's going to be tough to defend.
Yeah, I think it goes right into what Coach Jackson wants to do. He wants to play fast. That's a quick snap the ball pass. Line up, do it again. They do it two or three times, and we saw it again. Last year where they would fake that throw out there and then go deep. And so it's really just watching the defense. What do they want to do? Are they shading, like you're saying, shading towards that end where we can maybe draw them into something else, where to catch them off guard on a different type of play? Or, we saw a lot of stuff like that last year. And so, and when the season was young still, we kept telling ourselves, why aren't we not doing some of this other stuff? And they really started doing it towards the end of the season, and we saw some success with it. Now, again, with those type of plays, those are really kind of a feast or famine type deal. We saw, because it's very easy to, if you just come to the line of scrimmage and hey, this defense knows that's what I'm going to do, and you do it, it could be disaster real easy. And so it's going to take a good pass. It's going to take concentration. Obviously, the block is key, and timing on the block is key. You don't want to be called for a pick or anything like that. But the more they practice it, the more you can tell they're comfortable with it. It's just what they've done for the last 2-3 years now.
Well, and we talked a lot about their offense, so I want to get to the defense. But let's go ahead and let's play commercial since we're doing our scrimmage too. Let's go ahead and play a commercial. When we come back from that, we'll talk about the defense and kind of wrap this thing up too.
Hey Falcons fans, are you looking for a local streamlined real estate experience? I'm John O'Finkenbeiner with Exalt Realty, and in my 12 years in real estate, I have perfected the art of keeping the process of buying and selling simple and easy. Whether it's a buyer's or a seller's market or somewhere in between, make sure you call me, John O'Finkenbeiner, where real estate is made easy at 469-556-8392. Go Falcons!
Has your roof been damaged by hail?
With 15 years of experience serving all of Texas and an average of 1,500 roof projects per year, Remedy Roofing is here to help.
To schedule a free inspection, visit remedyroofing.com or call us at 888-HAIL-PRO.
Remedy Roofing. Quality workmanship without compromise.
You're listening to North Forney Falcons football on the Goonville Radio Network. Back here with North Forney Falcons football on the Goonville Radio Network on SHN Sports. It'll take me a little bit of getting used to saying that. Yeah, we're on YouTube this year. That's where we'll be broadcasting all of the games. So if you're listening right now during the scrimmage, this is where you can find all the games. And we'll be sending out a link every week that you can just hit and you'll be instantly there. Or you can follow the channel on SHN Sports. North Forney, we have their own channel there on the SHN Sports YouTube account, page, whatever, however you want to call it. We got to get all that sorted out at some point. But I expect a lot of big things. It'll be a lot of fun this year doing on YouTube. It'll be interesting to say the least, and I'm excited to see how it goes.
You can pull it up, and you can immediately see the score. So in case us non-professionals maybe don't say the score for a few minutes, you could always just pull it up, see the score, and then hang out and listen to what we got to say.
Yeah. If you don't want to hear, you can turn it down. I can't stop you from turning the volume down.
Why would you want to? Though?
But why would you want to?
Exactly.
Why would you want to?
We give you insight that you're not going to get probably even if you're here in the stands, you're not going to get the kind of insight that we can offer from a bird's eye view.
I didn't want to say it, but you're right. You're definitely right.
For instance, it looks like an 8 or a 9-year-old down here on the track that is like killing it as the single cheerleader tonight. She did a backflip a while ago, and I thought she was going to land on her head, but she didn't. She landed it.
Yeah, she did a handstand. You're right. There's nobody else out there, and she's cheering away. Yeah, you're right. That's the insight you just won't get anywhere else. So it looks like North Forney's offense is back out there again, their first-team offense. They drove the ball down the field their first time out. Got a couple of first downs before finally stalling out.
Ooh, deep
kind
pass
of looking
here.
Deep on the double move, looking for DeJuan Johnson, but it was just over his reach. So we talked about the offense, and they're back out there right now. I do want to switch over to the Falcons' defense now.
Okay.
Last year they played really well. Outside of a couple of games where they just kind of got their doors blown off. The Ennis game really comes to mind, but outside of that, they really played pretty well. Kept the offense, kept the team in the game just about every single game, which is really what you want from them. But they lost a few of their key starters. Lost a few of their key guys. One of their cornerbacks is gone from last year. They're one of their starting cornerbacks. But they do bring back some talent, and I really like the defensive line. There's two guys along that front, actually three guys that I really, really like. One being Roderick Brown, and I don't think he's playing tonight. No, I still see him down there. He's got a boot around his ankle that, from what I've kind of been told, is very precautionary, that he should be good to go next week. I don't even know what the injury is, so I can, even if I wanted to say that, I don't even know it. But watching him in the spring game, he was an absolute monster. He really destroyed it. It was so funny. So being at the spring game, the offense could not move the ball. Like, they couldn't run. And I was kind of concerned. I was like, man, this is going to be bad. Like, the defense line was just eating them up. And come a couple last week at the Goon game, all of a sudden the offense couldn't be stopped running the ball. It was, how is this such a big difference? That's when I realized that Roderick wasn't out there. And so he is going to be such a huge piece of this defense in the middle this year. He's going to be next to Jerome Collins, who played some offensive line last year. Him and Josh Anderson kind of switched a little. No, take that back. Josh Anderson will be on the defensive line this year. He played some offensive last year. Him and Collins kind of switched sides of the ball. So that'll be your starting middle, I would assume, is Brown and Collins, or Brown and Anderson. And then on the end, you've got Nemo, who played some running back before. And Nemo's a guy that I really, really like. Kind of reminds me, we've got a throw and catch over the middle, a nice throw and catch. I'm not sure who that receiver is, but that's a nice throw and catching traffic, and good job to hold on to it too. But Nemo is a guy that I really like. That he reminds me a lot of Galen Brown. He could be this year's Galen, but just a hard worker. And I think he'd be, as the season went on, I think Galen Brown and Cliff Funderburk, the two ends from last year, really got worn down. They were out there quite a bit, and they just earlier in the season, both those guys were so effective. And I think as the season went on, they just got so worn out that they lost their effectiveness. And this year, hopefully we get those guys will still have their edge for the end of the year. And I think Nemo could be the guy that maybe is even better than both those guys from last year too.
Well, you kind of broke my heart just now by saying that. Galen was my absolute favorite player from last year. The one played against Ennis that just stands out as, to me, the play of the year that defined this team, that defense as a whole. And that was just never quit, never give it high character, high motor, give it everything you got for your team. And we saw Cliff Funderburk last year. He didn't have the year that a lot of people expected him to have, coming off the year that he had before, the prior. And so I think, but their attitude never changed. Their stance on they played so hard all year long, and just it was hard to not root for them. Just the kind of character guys that they were, and so hopefully that spread to the younger guys coming up to take their spots this year, because you lost two really great just guys in the locker room, guys on the field, leaders on the team. And so if Nemo can, you say he can be better than that, I don't know how you can be better than that, but if he can just hold a candle and step into their shoes a little bit, then I think they're going to be in good shape on defense.
So last year I did get the chance to talk to Galen a couple of times, and man, every time I talked to him, he just was so respectful. I love talking to him. It's just, you don't see that out of a lot of teenage kids today, especially football players who, think that they're, above a lot of other people, a lot of other, things, just, talking to somebody like that, especially a no-name guy like me. But he was really kind and respectful. The same day when I got to talk to Nemo at the spring game, same thing. And it just, to me, and they kind of had the same styles of game. If, like you said, if he can be better than Galen, that's really good for North Forney.
That's right.
That's really good for North Forney. The Falcons scored a touchdown on their last possession there, run up the middle. I'll have to find out who the running back is who's wearing number 6, because he was really impressive on that drive. Kind of took it in the end zone on himself that time, breaking a couple of tackles. North Forney will keep the ball, but they'll switch sides going the other way now.
Yeah, there was a couple of really nice steps up in the pocket and lasers. A couple of them didn't get caught, but hit them right between the numbers.
So we talked about the defensive line. So let's move on to the linebackers. And for me, the linebackers are a little bit relatively unknown. We'll kind of see this year as we go along. One of the big guys they lost last year was Roby Robinson. I mean, it seemed like game after game. I mean, play after play. It was Roby Robinson on the tackle, Roby Robinson with the pass breakup, Roby Robinson with the sack, Roby Robinson this, Roby Robinson that. I mean, we were calling his name every single play, it seemed like. So he's going to be a big loss as one of those outside linebackers. But a guy that he's my favorite player going into this year. That's Jules Unique Dimps, plays a lot of that outside linebacker position. And you look at him on the field, and he's not very big. He's a small guy. Even coach will laugh about in the booster club meetings about joking around with him about how short he is. I think at one point he said something about they were going to a pizza place or Pizza Hut or something, and Jules was going to get to eat for free because coach could pick him up and carry him in there like a little kid. They have a good time with it, but to me that makes it even more impressive what he can do. I mean, he was the other guy that we called his name so many times last year, and he just doesn't look very big on the field. And he's not, but man, does he make a lot of plays. And he's out there playing like he's 6'2", 220 when in reality he's probably 5'6", 150. I mean, he's not
Sure.
big, but man, it's so much fun watching him play.
Yeah, I remember at the beginning of the year, we didn't really call his name a whole lot at the beginning of the year. I don't know that he even started at the beginning, but as the season progressed, I remember on the sheet, I had his name down, and I'm like, I think I'm saying his name wrong. Like this guy that we could barely pronounce his name or make sure it was the right name to begin with, turned around and had a really good last 6 or 7 games of the season last year, and it got better as the year went on. And so if he can pick up where he left off and join Nemo and join these other guys that are Donaldson on the outside, if he can pick up where he left off, I think they have a really good starting point this season.
Well, and then as we get to the secondary, a couple of guys. One guy we already talked about who's had a really good scrimmage so far, and that's Jacob Donaldson. But also there's another guy that's a senior who's had a lot of varsity experience. That should be his 3rd full year on varsity, really starting on varsity too, is Glenn De La Hoz, who gave us one of our greatest moments from last year in the Corsicana game with his big touchdown catch in the end zone. De La Hoz plays safety. He'll play some receiver. He'll line up all over the field. They use him in every way that they
punt
can.
returner.
Punt return. He did a lot of their punt returning last year. So man, just the experience that you have on that back end with De La Hoz and Donaldson and those guys, I think the secondary should be really good again.
Well, I mean, after talking, why are these guys not ranked to be district champs? I mean, they've got a lot of just great guys and great football players here on both sides of the football, and I think it's highlighted with this secondary unit. They looks like they're going to have to make a tackle right here.
Well, I think a lot, we kind of joke around about, why aren't they picked to be, the district champs? And I really do think a lot of that, especially from a media magazine that doesn't follow the North Forney program that closely, they just look back at last year and saw, man, they were really disappointed. They missed playoffs, and they just had a bad year. And I think they kind of looked at and project, but they're pretty good. I think they got some talent returning, so let's put them in at the 3 spot. I do think they can compete for district championship, and I think that would be their goal. It should be their goal this year to be there, and I think they can. It'll be interesting to see if they get there and if they can. But I think that's kind of, it's almost like a little bit of a non-bias or an unbiased towards them just because of the down season, the disappointing season they had last year. But I know everybody around this program, the coaches, the players, even the fans, they expect big things from this year, and at the very bare minimum is making playoffs. And I think the more realistic goal is to win district.
Yeah, looking at the schedule this year, obviously we got the different team next week in week 1 that we're going to play that we didn't play last year. Last year they got some good teams that they're going to have to, and obviously district starts week 3, after the Wiley East game, and so they're going to have to come along quickly to start. And I think that was part of the problem last year is they just started so slowly. By game 6, they looked like maybe they were just starting to hit, a stride, and it was really too late before they started clicking. And so they're going to have to take full advantage of the scrimmage here, full advantage of the next 2 games, and can't mess around and start slow for sure.
Well, that's kind of the other thing I wanted to get to as we kind of talked about both sides of the ball. And, not to forget special teams too. Rodriguez is back for his 3rd year. Now, Coach Jackson, we kind of talked about it a couple times last year. They did not really kick the ball too many times. They did towards the end of the year. They finally started to, kicking field goals, but they were so aggressive that they choose to go for it most of the time they're in the red zone. But they've got a pretty good kicker in Rodriguez, and their punting, it has switched. He's kind of been a revolving door. A couple years ago, it was Jordan Carroll who played receiver and cornerback. He did some of their rugby punting for him. I think Colby even did a little bit of punting. Last year, I think was it De La Hoz who did the punting?
No, it was the baseball player.
Oh, that's right, Corbin Thompson, the backup quarterback from last year, who was the pitcher from baseball. He did the punting last year. So I'll be curious to see who it is this year. It's kind of a fun little game from year to year. Nice pass break up in the corner of the end zone there from North Forney. But after we talked about both sides of the ball, the other thing I did want to touch on is the schedule for this year. Last year, I thought it was really cool that they, a really good cool opportunity to start out against Colleyville Heritage. They played at South Lake when we had to start the game sitting outside in the 100-degree heat in the sun. And cut the broadcast to be able to come inside halfway through at halftime, and our broadcast went about as well as the game did for North Forney last year. They got shut out. I want to say it was 16-0.
Well, we made it in at halftime. Remember, we went in.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, we went in at halftime, but an interception there from North Forney. But they lost 16-0. The offense really struggled. The defense, we were so impressed with the defense coming out of the game. Said, man, they held because Collegeville Heritage had a couple of D1 players on offense. We were really impressed. But I think that the tape was out there now for all the other teams to see how Collegeville Heritage played North Forney defensively and say, hey, they can't throw the ball down. They struggle to throw the ball downfield. Crowd the line of scrimmage. Force them to try to throw it over the top. And I think every team after that did the same thing. Of course, North Forney had their ups and downs. When Jalen played really well or Acuna played really well, the team played really well. And when they struggled, the team struggled. In that Unity Bowl game, they came off. They beat Wiley in week 2. They throttled Wiley in week 2, which Wiley's not a really good team. And then the third game, which is that first game, district game against the Jackrabbits, the Unity Bowl, North Forney was up by, I think, 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Ended up giving that game away. And like some of the players kind of told me, I don't think they really ever fully responded from that. They were rebounded from that. They had some ups and downs, but then, a couple weeks later, they got throttled by Ennis 35-7. They had that really tough loss to Kaufman in the rain. That just Jalen got hurt in the middle of that game. And Jalen was playing really well at that point, too. That's what was more disappointing or heartbreaking. But it was, rain and pouring most of that game, and Kaufman ended up beating them pretty good. Then you had that really close, tight game against Corsicana that, in Corsicana ended up winning the district. How big of a win that would have been on the road at Corsicana. You came back and you beat Greenville. I think you beat Sulphur Springs at the end of the year. A tip pass interception by Donaldson.
Second one of the night.
Man, what another big play. I'm telling you, he's going to be all over the place this year. We're going to be calling his name a lot. But you came back and beat Sulphur Springs, who was a playoff team last year. You beat Royce City. But those losses really just stand out. They're such tough losses. But I think this year, you look ahead to this year, and the district is wide open. Kaufman, the team that made playoffs last year, they lose, 3 or 4 of their top guys. Trey Collier, their quarterback, being one of them who's going on to Tulsa to play Division I football. So Kaufman looks a little bit down. Corsicana's losing their quarterback and some of their big players from their district championship team. North Forney's bringing back a lot of guys. So is Ennis. I think that's the popular pick to win district. Is the Ennis
they were
team.
real young last year. They started slow, a lot like North Forney, and then they picked it up towards the end. Made the last spot for the playoffs.
And so this year we will be traveling to Ennis, which will be a lot of fun for us. Ennis is a really nice stadium, which is a lot of what we care about. But traveling to Ennis, where they've got a really rich tradition. A lot of history there for Ennis.
Coach Harrell being there for his second year now, back.
And we'll travel out to the East schools. Last year we got both Greenville and Sulphur Springs here at City Bank. So this year we'll actually travel out to Sulphur Springs and out to Greenville to play both of those schools. We will get Kaufman here at home, which
thank the Lord
we're very excited about. Their press box situation it's not good. Anybody that listened to the game last year found out that, hey, why is the game not on in the second half? Well, it's because we were out in the rain and the equipment was getting poured on, and we decided to get out of there while the equipment still worked, and thankfully we're back with the same equipment. So it was a good call. It was a good decision there. Of course, the Unity Bowl will be here, but North Forney will be the home team, so that'll be fun. Man, that was what an intense game that was last year.
The best
so
game
back
of the
and forth. Yeah, it really was.
Between that and Corsicana, it was an excellent game to be a part of for sure.
And then Royce City, we played there.
Yeah.
So we will get Royce City here this year. And I'm trying to think of, is that
Terrell?
everybody?
We got to go to
We got to
Terrell.
go to Terrell, which I'm not really excited about that.
Yeah.
It's got to be better than Kaufman, but I'm still not excited about it. And then in the non-district, kind of the last thing we'll touch on too is, so we don't play Collegeville Heritage this year. Usually you play a team home and away in 2 years. Collegeville Heritage got an invitation to play in the Tom Landry Classic, which is a really big deal around here for high school teams. It's really some of the best teams against each other. And so they basically asked Coach Jackson North Forney if they could find a replacement to play the Falcons this year. So they found Frisco Heritage, and we'll play against Frisco Heritage here. That'll be the first game. That'll be next Friday, right here at City Bank Stadium with the 7:30 kickoff, 7:15 pregame show. And then week 2 will be Wiley, and that'll be at Wiley since they came here last year. And that is pretty much the entire North Forney football schedule, except for playoffs when we get there, obviously.
Yeah, obviously we'll know that close to the end of the season. Hopefully we'll have it locked up before we get to week 10.
You got any final thoughts?
Well, I would say, is talking about the schedule and looking at the games last year and how they were right in the thick of it with two of the top 3 teams in the district, with Corsicana and Sulphur Springs. And really, if you have different circumstances with the weather and other things with Kaufman, you would have been right in the thick of it with them as well. And so they played with the best teams in the district last year, toe-to-toe. And so I see them taking steps forward. And a lot of those teams that they went toe-to-toe with are going to take a step backwards, I believe. They're going to be younger. They're going to have some inexperience and things like that. And so I really do look for them to be a better team record-wise and overall this year. I really do. And so, and another note from last year that I'm looking for everything wooden around here to knock on, but that was the worst football season with weather that I think I've ever seen. I mean, it was terrible. Lightning delays, rain out, Saturday games. I mean, it was a terrible year. Hot, cold, you name it. It was awful. And so we're praying that the Lord would just help us this year and keep it nice and calm.
Yeah.
Okay, we're due.
You know, we're not asking for 73-degree weather every week. We just let us play the game.
Yeah, just how about we don't have threat of dying from lightning strikes?
Yeah, that would be nice. That it would help our equipment too, depending on where we go.
For sure.
Well, thank you to everybody for if you did tune in here on our YouTube channel here on SHN Sports. It's still the Goonville Radio Network, but we'll just be broadcasting here on YouTube through the SHN Sports YouTube channel. We'll be here every Friday night, 7:30 for kickoffs, 7:15 for pregame shows. We look forward to an awesome season. We're really excited. And for Tim, for James, I'm Wally, and we will see you next Friday.